cheating, mental manipulation, gaslighting, and just narcissism, I guess. The story is not very much dark or anything, but it is a crazy story that goes into many directions and covers many complicated topics. So proceed at your own caution. This guy has unfortunately influenced my worldview for years to come, even though I am aware of that and I am trying to be a different person and to think differently. Unfortunately, his influence on me very early on has taken root before I had defense mechanisms in my brain to get rid of his influence, and that is very unfortunate. And it goes to show you that grooming and just manipulation of young people by adults cannot always just be made good again, cannot always be remedied, and there are lasting consequences and lasting wounds that remain. It's not something that you just kind of did as an oopsie to someone and then you can just count on this person outgrowing the damage that you have done as an adult. And so the story is also a cautionary tale. I know damn well there is no point in telling adults not to groom children because, if they're about to, it's already too late. But this is a cautionary tale for young people that might stumble upon this video, even though it's not necessarily made for people underage, honestly, but it is what it is. It's the internet. I'll try to keep it classy. And this is just a warning for young people to not get involved with adults, and hopefully, even if one person listens to it and decides to stop messing with someone too young, too old, or too young for them, then I'm already happy that I could help this one person. So without further ado, let's just start with the story. We've met through his cousins and his brother, 3 other guys, and I was so boy crazy at this age, and I was dreaming about hanging out with boys finally. And then at 14 I finally met my group of friends, and the majority of us are still friends to this day, which is crazy. With some of them it's 20 years now. His cousins were both 17, his brother was 18, and he was 22 going on 23 when we met. So there's this guy, we'll call him Jean. There is a friend of mine, her name is Tina. There's also Jean's brother, Sam, and Jean's cousin, Gus. When I met those guys, I was immediately flirting with Gus. He just seemed so harmless to me, and I was so eager to start hanging out with boys that I had this one chance to do so, and I just took it. Yeah, and being such a shy girl, I'm still very surprised how I just started flirting with the guy. I never done this shit before, and I have never done this shit again in my life. I was just desperate, I guess. And it just brought about the whole story because his cousins noticed, and they just kind of started hanging out more with me and my girlfriend so that he could, being wingman for him. And we all just, got along like a house on fire. We had so much fun, but I'll restrain myself and not tell the whole story. Whatever. I'm now heavily flirting with Gus. Gus is terrifyingly, painfully shy, cripplingly so. I think he's autistic. He did not talk to anyone when he was sober. Like, absolutely quiet to himself, observant. And the second he got drunk, this is when he relaxed add some social lubricant into his system. And this is also always when he hit on me. I don't know, that was also like the first time I started drinking, the first time I tried beer in earnest, and it was amazing. I was feeling drunk for the first time ever. All we did was just hug. We barely talked to each other. He initiated our first conversation, but then we barely spoke a word to each other, because from this moment on, other people were always around. When I say he's autistic, I don't mean to be insulting. Like, I generally feel that he might be, because his shyness was out of this world. But I don't know. He was also like obviously an alcoholic. So when I met Gene, I was kind of dealing with his cousin, because he seemed very soft-spoken, polite, home-trained. But I did have this feeling that he was a dark horse. He seemed very restrained and contemplative, and you could see that he was like analyzing you. And I immediately got this vibe of him, and I knew that he was like the type of person you need to kind of be a little bit vigilant with, and I just did not know why exactly. The first red flag was when this other 14-year-old girl joined us very briefly, and he started like flirting with her heavily, like asking her to look him in the eyes and repeating her name, and he was very overt about his flirting. He was a little bit drunk that day, so I already noticed that he let a lot more of his personality out, and this is where I knew, oh, okay, you know, the scumbagginess of him that I felt does come out now. The next week after we met, it was his birthday, and we were all invited, and this is the first time that I've tried vodka, and I just remembered that he was very nice to me. Nothing flirty at all, nothing like crazy, but whenever he did have a conversation with me, he was very polite and, I don't know, nice. He wasn't trying to impress me or anything, but I did have a good impression of him that day. But then he really surprised me, because he totally treated my friend Tina like absolute shit. He was like pushing her buttons or whatever, and she is very explosive, especially when she's drunk. And she kind of started like talking shit to him, and they got into this verbal argument, and then she tried to like, I don't know, push him, and then he kind of pushed her back and whatever. It was like crazy. She has known him for a little bit longer, like a month or so. I kind of need to jump back a little bit just to talk about Tina real quick. I'll be as quick as I can. We've met when we were 12. We have been friends for a bit, but she was too intense for me. Like the smoking, the like already being a little bit like grown around men, and all this male attention. It was a culture shock for me. I was like a completely different person. So it faded out. Then for some unexplained reason, I feel like because I was intimidated by her and felt like I was something better than her or whatever. I don't know, bro. I started talking shit about her, you could say. It was pathetic. Like, it's one of the worst things I did. I don't understand why I did that. I was like trying on those personas, and I was 12. But she came out of it completely unfazed. Like, she was just a charming, popular And then due to the fact that she and her girlfriends were hanging out those boys, and then I met those boys too, we kind of all combined in one group very seamlessly because I knew all those girls from school already. And actually Tina and I, we lived in the same house, so we became friends very fast. So then when Tina and I grew closer, she told me what he did to her that made her so hostile. So this is crazy. So Gina has a brother, Sam. Sam is this reserved, funny guy that keeps to himself, does not open up much, also unless he's drunk. Tina and Sam hit it off and kind of dated for 2 weeks. Then some rumors about her that were untrue were said to Sam, that she was fast, that she was a hoe, whatever. She was 14, I remind you. So, and then he dumped her. That really broke her heart because he was kind of like her first love, first real sexual encounter. She was my age, 14, but she had like a little bit of an ass on her, you know, a little bit of breasts, so men just saw it as an invitation, and she was just fearless, and I don't know, she never was afraid of male attention. That did not mean that she craved it, you know, per se. She was also like a confused teenager that did not know how exactly the whole thing is supposed to work, you know. And men just kind of like already started ogling her. I don't know. It was weird. And talking shit about her, like, Jesus Christ, it's so embarrassing. And I'm really talking like guys older than us. Yikes. They all kind of lived in one vicinity, so this is how the rumors spread. And we also live in like a small town. So, whatever. She was sad, upset, and this is where Jean fucking appeared as a fatherly figure, trying to, you know, be her friend or whatever. Oh, you know, my brother, he can be like that and shit like that, you know, asshole. Meanwhile, we all know what Jean was actually doing, and yes, that was exactly what he was doing. And one day, when they were on like a walk, and everything before that was very friendly, and you know, an older guy mentoring this girl, and they were just talking. But then all of a sudden, one time at night, they were like outside, and he propositioned her, and she said no, but he was extremely fucking persistent, and he just basically wore her down until it was easier to just say yes than to say no. A very common practice, by the way, at the time. Like, girls mostly needed more convincing then, for, you know, their honor's sake, and to avoid rumors later on that you're like easy and whatever. And those rumors were much more devastating back in the day, I feel like, you know. So it's a very hard situation when you as a guy know that you need to do some convincing, but then when does it stop? And their situation really did cross that line. And it's unfortunate that we do live in a society where that line exists even. But she just really agreed, because he was like wearing her down 2 hours or something, just being annoying and like kissing her and like trying to whatever, get her in the mood, whatever. So finally they just did that. And no one in her life really helped her self-esteem or took care of her the way they should have. The adults in her life just abandoned her. No one cared about her education. She was just a feather in the wind, and any influence on her just moved her in one direction or the other. And yeah, so that happened. But after that, he just stopped being friends with her and kind of like not ghosted her, but just the effort to hang out or anything was not being applied at all anymore. And it just fizzled out, and obviously she was offended. And this is why when he was like for some reason trying to draw her, get into her skin. She reacted violently to that, and they got into this fight, which I don't know why he was doing that, why he was provoking her. Maybe it was like more playful, but just not said correctly, or maybe he went too far with a certain joke or anything, I don't know. But also he could be very malicious. I feel like he was very slut-shamey, as everyone was back in the day. So he kind of lost respect for her when that happened, because even though she took so much convincing, like the courtship period was short, and I feel like this courtship period for him is like the indicator of whether or not a girl is like worthy of not being called a slut or whatever. But because he will specifically say something about that later on. This is how I theorize that. But whatever. So asshole, groomer, piece of shit, opportunist, pedo. So I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Like when she told me that. But unfortunately, when she told me this fucking story, I feel like I already was starting to befriend this asshole. So this started happening when he became kind of curious about the internet. It was right at the beginning of like the whole internet being mainstream. It was 2005, I believe, or 6 or so. So obviously the internet has been around for a while, but people were still not into it terminally as they are now. And so this dude found out that I have internet and a computer and whatever. He did not have one yet. He just moved where we all were living at. And so he was like, hey, can I come to your place sometime just to surf the internet? And I was like, okay, I guess. And I remember cleaning my room because I had a guy visiting me one-on-one, and I was like, that's interesting. Even though I was not interested, and I did not have any reason to believe that he was interested. And so I started occasionally coming to my place and would just surf the internet, just laugh, do whatever, you know. And I did that with a lot of other friends. I was also showing them the ropes, and so that was nothing new for me per se, nothing weird per se. They had questions, I had answers, I had funny stuff to share. So that's what we did. And then he also moved. He and Sam both moved to a flat right next to me. We started hanging out all the time. He bought himself a computer, and this is where Tina told me the story. Good friend would have obviously stopped hanging out with the guy who did this shit, and also a person with some sense in their brain. But he gave me zero indication that he was interested in me at all in that way. There was no flirting, there was no touching, nothing. He wasn't showering me in compliments, which he wasn't love bumping me, nothing like that. But he was showing me just genuine interest. And also he started very fast kind of making me his confidant in a way. And I know that's groomy too. Establishing this trust, and then you demand something back. Oh, I open up to you, now you open up to me type shit. I know that's manipulative. Whether or not it was intentional from the beginning or just part of his manipulative narcissistic ways, I don't know. I don't know if he wanted to sleep with me per se, but maybe just to keep me around long term. A frozen meal for later. Perhaps I might need it, perhaps not. I think that was more it. Because I was just not his type, apparently. Very insulting indeed. Because he was heavily hitting on every other girl in the vicinity. And it's also a type of emotional abuse if you do it willingly, if you exclude someone from your romantic attention attention, it makes this other person crave this attention. And also, I don't know if that was what he wanted to do or he was genuinely not interested at all. That's what I saw, that he wasn't interested at all. When he was hitting on other girls, when I was hearing about him fucking other girls, whatever, I was always like thinking to myself, I don't have any feelings for him. I'm not attracted to him. But at the same time, like, why not me? What's wrong with me? You know, am I like so ugly or what? It infiltrated my brain a little bit. And before you ask me why on earth I even gave a guy any type of attention or time of day after he treated my friend this way, you would be absolutely right. I was very young. I've had a lot of friendships by that time, but I have never had a guy be in any way like that interested in me, that he would want to hang out with me, spend time with me. It made it cooler that he was that much older, you know, the drill. These old guys make teenagers feel so smart and special, blah blah blah. He was doing all that. It was a feeling I was not ready to let go of, because at this point in time I had no proof that anything like it might happen again. So I just was willing to kind of compromise my own integrity just to have this moment last a little bit longer, because it made me feel very good. And also, I became friends with the two of them at the same time. I have known Tina for longer, but we weren't friends. So it just started at the same time, and I noticed that they had this weird competition for my attention. When all of us were around at the same time, they would be pulling me aside, trying to talk to me. Not because I was like the center of attention, but because those two just wanted to show it to each other. And I was just trying to stay neutral. Also, the way she told me the story about what happened to them, it was more like, oh, it was consensual, but he played me. It's only now that I realized that the other implications of what happened between those two and how terrible it was. Back then it was just, oh, this guy is such a player, and it was just the first time ever something like that has happened to me, so I was completely out of my element, and I did not know what I was doing at all. So Tina was rapidly becoming like my best friend. She just wanted to share every hobby of mine. She just wanted like to be connected to me, so she copied the way I dressed and this and that a little bit. Even though she did have a strong personality, she wasn't like this chameleon. So I was flattered by that, and I liked that. I liked her company very much. I talked shit a little bit about him with her, but never the other way around, and never like a lot. Because obviously he was in the wrong in the situation. But I was just, I guess, on paper more loyal to her, but in secret I was like slowly maybe catching feelings, or just thinking that I'm catching feelings because I was manipulated to feel this way. I don't know. I don't know where his manipulations end and start. So it was very hard for me to just, let go, and especially because we were all in the same group. We saw each other twice a week. We spent hours and hours and hours together. There was no avoiding him, so I did not know how I were to go about it, cutting him off. So I just went with the option of the least resistance. And even though they did not continue fighting or anything, there was this cool air in between those two. They just did not like each other that much, and they made it very clear to me behind each other's backs. And one time when we were invited to this sleepover at one guy's place, Tina just was concerned about sharing space with Jean for such a long time. And since she's this dramatic of a person, as you will come to find out later, she immediately jumped to the idea of giving him sleeping pills so that by the end, when everyone went to sleep, he would already be out. She just wanted to eliminate his company from her presence as soon as possible. And she actually told me about this plan and asked my opinion on it. And I was just like, nah, I'm not cool with that. That's assault. Even if we weren't cool, I still would not have been on board with slipping someone some sleeping pills. Like, what the fuck? And I did not believe that she would actually go as far. But the thing with Tina is, the second you think that she will not go there will be the exact second she goes there. I knew that even then. So I could not let go of the possibility that she might just do it. I was just 80% certain she wouldn't, but those 20% lurked in my brain. And when the time came for the party, I was asking her here and there, are you actually planning on doing that? And she was kind of teasing me and not giving me a real answer, and I was worried. And Gene is extremely observant, and so everything Tina and I did, he was watching us. And he saw us kind of, whispering and being secretive and clandestine, and he was immediately suspicious. And without talking to each other, both of those fucking idiots pulled me aside and told me that if I were to talk to the other person, they would know that I'm on their side and that I betrayed their trust and stuff like that. She told me that if she were to see me with Gene, she would know that I'm warning him and going behind her back. And then later that day, Gene also pulled me aside and told me that, oh, I know that you're involved in something. She's planning on doing something, and I know it's about me. If I see you gossiping with her, then I know that you're a part of it. Dude, okay, I get Tina and I being all dramatic about that. We're 14, we're just role-playing more than actually, meaning it. It was just 14-year-old girls having the time of their life, imagining some crazy stuff. We're so young, but he was actually an adult, and the fact that he even took that shit seriously was just so outrageous to me. I don't know, but yeah, I ended up just barely talking to either of them, and Tina was so upset over it and almost crying, so dramatic. She was so dramatic that day, so unnecessarily just emotional. For example, the host of this apartment was this boy even younger than we were. I don't even know why he was hanging out with us and why he invited us over for a sleepover at his place. He was this fuckboy in the making, gym rat, pretty, extroverted. You just knew that he'll grow up to be a heartbreaker, and he was flirting with everybody, but then all of a sudden he kind of fixated on Tina and I, and he ended up completely fixating on me for the rest of the evening, trying to undress in front of me and striptease or whatever. And I was just Brooke, please leave me alone. I was laughing it off, and he scratched his wrists until he bled a little and showed it to me dramatically and was oh, I love you and you don't love me back. And I just slapped him on the face, and I was don't you ever fucking do that shit. What the fuck is wrong with you? Nobody's worth it. I ended up being a hypocrite and doing the same cringe shit myself later, but whatever. And Tina was crying, why does he love you and why doesn't he love me? And I was just girl, we've known this guy for a couple of weeks. What the fuck is wrong with you? And this dude was just a lightning in a bottle. He just came and went. It was just not so serious to I don't know. We all forgot about the situation the next day. So it wasn't that deep. But it just goes to show you how dramatic Tina is. And yeah, so Gene was so paranoid the whole time. I must have told him in the end of the day that he should watch what he drinks and eats or something. And he started switching his shots with me. So he would take my vodka shot and just give me his. And he was like, oh, if you don't drink it, then I know that you're involved, blah, blah, blah. It's so dramatic, so cringe-worthy. I'm dying just thinking about that stuff. And yeah, so this is the extent of the relationship of Tina and Gene. One day they'll be laughing like nothing happened. He would be like play flirting with her. The next day he'll be going on her nerves and antagonizing her and just trying to rile her up. And then the next day they would just ignore each other and not notice each other's existence. It would be like that. They were obviously attracted to each other, but he just did not have any type of respect for her. He just wouldn't mind giving it another go in a sack with her, but he did not respect her because he was like a slut shaming her and thinking that she was like not worth it because she gave it away this quick, like this early 2000s bullshit. And also it was about the time where Gus and I started pulling away from each other, or more so I was starting to understand that this will not work out. And soon after, something happened that ended up being the end of our quote-unquote relationship. Before our falling out, Gus and I have already had our first kiss. It was hella romantic. Just imagine me sitting on a bench in a park, a girlfriend of mine drunk off her ass, laying with her head resting on my lap and puking everywhere, then sleeping, then puking everywhere again, then sleeping again. And I was just babysitting her. And Gus sat down next to me and kissed me. That was my very first kiss with a boy, like a real kiss. I used to kiss a bunch of girls before that. My very, very first kiss being with like a semi-school bully, semi-queen bee of our school, but whatever. So yeah, very romantic, and that would be not the last time my first kisses happened in front of witnesses, which was very funny. But yeah, I guess it's a curse. So we were at this party, and I was alone for a bit, and Gus approached me at the end of the party and kissed me, and it was nice. He was very gentle, very loving. It was a nice kiss. At this point, nothing has changed in our relationship. We would not be dealing with each other at all when we were sober. We were just hugging each other when we were drunk. He would approach me, hug me, sit me on his lap, and that would be about the extent of it. I liked it, but it was clear that that was not going anywhere. I loved the feeling of it. It was very new to me. I loved the butterflies in my stomach. I loved the guy hugging me. He was tall. He was like not stunningly beautiful or anything, but he was a nice looking guy. Nothing bad to say about him, but his shyness was incredibly irritating at this point, and I was shy too, so nothing was happening. His cousins were like infuriated by how much of a idiot he was being, you know. His shyness just prevented him from doing anything. Gene was just trying to get him to move things along. Like, Gene was taking it personally almost that some guy could be this dense, but nothing really worked. And so yeah, it was just not going anywhere. One time he actually managed to find enough courage to call me and ask me out. It wasn't even a date, we're just walking around, and it was boring. There was nothing to talk about. Like, it was clear that this was not going anywhere ever. Tina and I would call him, and Tina would be the only one talking to him. Like, I would just be sitting here and listening. I just wanted to hear his voice, I guess, to be in touch with him during the weekdays. And she didn't mind. She was not ashamed of anything. She just called him and talked to him, and I was just sitting there third wheeling in my own situationship. It's crazy. But guess what? At this party where Gus approached me and kissed me, guess what he did before that? He kissed 2 more fucking girls before he went up to me and kissed me. That's just amazing to me to this day. Because at the end of this party, a drunk Tina approached me crying and confessed that not only did Gus kiss her, he also kissed another girl. And what's even more funny, the 3 of them, assholes, were kissing each other at the same fucking time. Don't ask me to explain the logistics of it to you. I don't know how much tongue length it requires for 3 people to suck on each other's faces at the same time. I don't know. But that's exactly what happened. The 3rd girl was some no-name girl that just showed up for this one time and disappeared into the ether. But whatever. So it's just funny to me because I know for a fact that Gus was not the one initiating that kiss. Dude, this guy couldn't even approach the girl he actually fell in love with, you know? Not to mention just those 2 weird strangers, I guess. He knew Tina, but not like, I don't know. He didn't have feelings for her or anything. So I know that those 2 bitches approached him and kissed him just for shits and giggles. I feel like it's the same harmlessness that he exudes that just made the girls want to just fuck with him and just, you know, play games with him and test his shyness and stuff. So they approached him and they just probably started kissing in front of him and then kissed him or something. And I feel very bad for him because he's a teenage boy. No teenage boy would say no to that, you know? Life's too short. We weren't like official or anything. So I don't feel like he did something very wrong by doing that. And if I really had feelings for him, I could have probably forgot all about that over time. You know, depending on his apology or something. But I just took this situation as my out. I knew this was not going anywhere, and I knew that we will never be in a relationship. So it was my out to not be the villain, to have the responsibility be on him, and I just took it. I was not like actively understanding that at the point, but I know now that I was relieved. I cried. I still felt sad and betrayed, but I was not heartbroken over it. I don't remember being like traumatized by that or anything. And I also forgave Tina almost immediately, so it was not that big of a deal for me. Basically that's how I stopped talking to Gus from this point on. Tina and I, we went to the same school, we lived in the same house, used the same bus, the same elevator. So we were standing in the elevator before school, and she told me later that I looked like I was fuming. I looked like steam might ran out of my nostrils, that I will choke her or kill her or something. She told me that I was breathing hard. I don't remember chances. And yeah, he was extremely heartbroken. He punched a tree with his fists until he bled and stuff like that, but there was nothing that he could have done at this point. That was the end. And the thing that I still find so dirty about Tina was that a couple of months down the line, she actually approached me and asked me if I would be okay with her dating Gus. She used to like hold his hand or stuff like that, try to cuddle with him because she was just bored and lonely. And I was like, yeah, go ahead. And nothing came of it. I don't even think that she did anything to make it happen, or I don't know why she would ask me something like that. It was just such a what the fuck thing. I, like, knowing what I know now, I enabled her to just continue this toxic behavior, but we were all just very young and naive and stupid. So, it's not as if me no longer dealing with Gus untied Gene's hands in any way or anything. Gene has no loyalty. He would not have given a fuck if I was dealing with his cousin if he truly wanted me. But something about me now being like officially free 100%, it kind of made him take another look at me. Before our situationship breakup with Gus, Gene was kind of like chasing us girls around. We were all drunk, laughing, just, being stupid. And he grabbed Tina and kissed her on the mouth. And then he grabbed me and kissed me on the mouth too. It was just some stupid thing. We all just laughed it off. Thinking about it now, it's just very, very gross, obviously, but seemed harmless back then. So that was like our first kiss, and that would be not the last time a guy forcefully kissed me, and not the last time Gene in particular did that. So Gene was very interested in a girlfriend of mine named Anne, and he wanted to date her so bad. He was like running after her, and Anne and I were close. We were school friends, and I brought her to join the group, and he was just infatuated with her, and he was constantly asking me to be his wingman and to talk to her and this and that and help him pick gifts for her and stuff. And they ended up even dating, but it was just extremely awkward, and the vibe was not here from her part, and there was nothing he could do. He just realized that she was just not interested at all, and she asked me to tell him that the relationship would not work out. They were like together for a couple of weeks, and she just asked me to break the news to him. And I remember genuinely feeling bad. He met me after school, and he was like, oh, do you know what type of jewelry she likes? Does she like silver or gold or whatever? And I was just like, Gene, listen, she isn't feeling you like that. And he took it very well, but it broke his heart. He was like sad. But again, she was 14, she's younger than I am, and he was 23. I remember the day they started dating, he bought her a bouquet of flowers. He bought me a bouquet of flowers, and he brought a rose for every other girl because it was an International Women's Day. I don't know why, I just randomly remembered that, but that was a sweet thing of him to do. And he bought like flowers for his relatives and stuff. And I just felt very bad for him. I felt his pain. I feel like I felt even kind of, how do I say this? I guess at this point it was like a matter of hurt pride for me that he was liking another girl my age, but he wasn't liking me even though we were close. I was just asking myself, what the fuck is wrong with me, It was not because I fell so in love with him, but because I was just like wondering, am I like ugly or what's wrong with me? When you're young, you don't understand that it either is there or it's not there. No one can do anything about it, but I was just so naive. And I guess when she broke up with him, I felt at ease, and I could actually feeling bad, but that could not have been the extent of it. That could not be it. I must have felt relief that, the other girl removed herself from the picture and they just stopped dealing with each other altogether. We're all hanging out together, but it was as if those two were in completely separate universes. Not one single word exchanged, nothing. He left her completely alone and she did not want anything to do with him. So yeah, that's how he remained for a while. All throughout Anne and Jean's relationship, Jean and I were very close as ever. He was staying at my place until like 4 a.m. until my mother just damn near cussed him out. I was constantly sleeping over at his place. One time I'm not really proud of. He was still dating Anne, and I slept over at his place. Anne knew about it and knew all about our friendship. She just did not care. I guess she felt like she was the newcomer, the intruder in like our thing, and I guess she still didn't know how this whole thing works either, so she did not say anything to me. We'll continue to be friends. It was a very weird, awkward situation. I stayed over at Jean's place, and I remember sleeping in my bra. That was like not cute. I knew what I was doing. I don't know what I was doing, showing him the absolutely non-existent boobage, like it was gonna do anything, but like it was not an okay thing to do. I wouldn't want someone doing that with my boyfriend, so it was not cute. It was all under the pretense of it being like a non-problem. I was wearing his hoodie too, but it was unzipped. Like, I regret it. I don't know what I was thinking, but nothing happened at all. We were just smoking, talking, and then we fell asleep. He was also having a picture of Anne and I hugging, whatever, a picture we took at school or after school. He was having it as his screensaver on his computer. Like, what a fucking creep. I don't even want to know what he was thinking putting this picture on his computer. Like, what the fuck? It was just so weird, and we both saw it. We laughed about it. Anne and I, we both laughed about how creepy that was. And that was like a shrine of a sort. What the fuck was that? I don't even know. But yeah, this situation with the two of them ended for now, and Jean and I remained friends, and we must have been cuddling after that or something, but it was relatively harmless. No kissing or anything, just we watched movies until my mother basically kicked him out, or until we fell asleep at his place or something. We spent a lot of time together, ran errands together. We had deep conversations, told each other secrets. He told me a bunch of his depressive thoughts and stuff like that. He could really trust me, and I've also felt like I could trust him. I just did not have, given my fucking young age, much to confess, I guess, which is, I'm glad that I did not give him much leverage or something. And yeah, it took us a while to being in this limbo, but then things started, unfortunately, to kind of progress in a completely wrong direction, and I don't know if that was intentional. I don't know if he always planned on grooming me, if that long period of a year or so of him being my friend, I don't know if he always meant for it to end differently, or it just happened on a whim. Maybe he was just keeping me warm, and as the last resort, if he doesn't find the girl he was actually looking for or something, maybe. I don't think he was particularly interested, because he's not exactly shy about pursuing things, but he was never sexual with me. He never touched me inappropriately at all. And even with Anne, when they were dating, he made it clear that he will be waiting until she was 18 was kind of like maybe not a narcissist per se. I don't think that he was a narcissist, but he did show a lot of narcissistic traits. I don't know what caused him to be this way. He wasn't malicious, but he will just go through you if that meant benefiting from it. Kind of like a little bit psychopathic. And I feel like I just gave him the attention that he craved, and he liked the way I made him feel, the way I listened to him. We also kind of vibed very well as friends. We were kind of a little bit sarcastic, a little bit snarky and cynical, and even though I do feel like he made me more cynical, because he just sheerly made me get used to being more cynical for a long stretch of time, so it just kind of became the way I was. But I was, even before I met him, I was already a little shit, and I was already very much like introspective as well, and I asked myself a lot of psychological or philosophical questions like a normal teenager, you know, thinking that they're the shit and thinking that they discovered how the universe worked and whatever. I was just very philosophical and stuff like that, and I like to talk about that type of stuff. We both were kind of drawn to this like call of the void, you can say. We like talking about dark subjects. We did not dwell on it. We weren't like two goths hanging around the cemetery, even though we did in fact hang out on the cemetery, now that I think about it. Yeah, we were more goth than we knew, I guess, even though I was freshly out of my goth phase and I was in my punk phase back then. I thought I was like this little punk, and no one around me dressed like this at all. I was the only one I knew that listened to rock music and stuff. This other cousin, I decided not to even mention because he wasn't really contributing to this particular story much. He was also like listening to a lot of rock music, so we vibed incredibly with him too. And Gene was just completely different. He was just like this regular guy. It didn't have like any type of rap sheet or anything, but he, as well as Sam, his brother, they did engage in like some minor petty crimes, I guess, back where they came from, but I don't know. It's incredible now that I tell this story for the first time ever. My memory just does not serve me well, or maybe there just isn't that much to talk about as far as how our friendship went. It was a regular friendship. The only thing weird about it was our age difference, you know, and maybe a little bit our gender, because in my age it was still like a little bit weird for a girl to hang out with a guy just alone and, you know, have sleepovers and stuff like that. That was in fact very weird. But again, I still don't feel like he ever planned on doing shit with me in the foreseeable future. Our sleepovers were for convenience because it was easier for me to stay over than go home. I don't know, even though we lived like right next to each other, and my parents knew where I was. They just thought there would be like other people there, and they were like, his grandma was in the house, and Sam was more often than not also in the house. And I just told my parents that, you know, we were just all staying over in this flat, and actually it would be like Gene and his family and me staying over with Gene. But I made a point of never lying to my parents more than I absolutely had to, you know. I tried to always say directly where I was with whom, and my parents trusted me and they just let me stay over, which I feel